Yin Won and Catherine McBride from Rotterdam, who are part of setting up Tender Center, and they will explain themselves what that is. The floor is yours. Oh, yeah.
Just setting myself a timer. Hi, I'm Yin, and Catherine and I are here on behalf of Tender Center. We are a collective of, at the moment, 11 people. And we are also supported by volunteers and people that help at different capacities at different times. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we started out. We opened our doors for the first time in October 2018. And so a little bit of a context of the where Tender Center is located. It's located in the old north of Rotterdam, and it's actually next to my studio, which is next to my house. And I live in a collective, a co-op, so I share my house with 6 people. And my neighbors, they are from the same collective. They share the house with 5 people. We have an open garden where we tore down a wall. And one house next from us lives my friend Shelly, who has an old-time band, really cool. And we're good friends, and we had this one place in between us where a lady lived who was very sort of closed and kind of a recluse, and her garden was really badly maintained. And Shelly and I would always look at the garden and think, like, if Mevrouw Eggink leaves at one point, we would love to open up the entire garden and hopefully have something cool in that place, because it's actually not a living place, but it's a shop space. But because Mevrouw Eggink had been living there for 40 years or so, it had maintained a living. Anyway, I have to speed up a little bit, I think. But anyway, it started from this idea to have the garden there, and conversationally, I got in touch with some friends of mine that were actually thinking about opening a queer space, and one led to another, and we took the space, or we rent the space now, that is now Tender Center. And here are some pictures of us rebuilding or renovating the inside. This is the garden that is connected to Tender Center and now connected to these communities around. Here are some pictures of the inside. And Catherine will read our sort of manifesto text that's on our website about Tender Center.
Yeah, and I think just quickly to add to what Yin said, it's maybe an important thing to mark that one of the desires of the original group that established the space was for a queer space that was maybe more women, non-binary and trans-led than other existing spaces in the city. And when I say that, I'm talking about like physical permanent spaces rather than kind of spaces that exist in temporal moments. So Tender Center is currently 11 people in a space who go by these words. We're a collective of anti-racist feminist queers who are building the beginnings of a community centre for culture, or a venue for queer events, or a Les University of Life in Rotterdam. Tender Center is a relational infrastructure and venue with parties, agitation, co-learning, bodies in varying states, gardening, swords, conversation, workshops, food, DIY darkroom, curry, and a solid sound system. And that last bit wasn't true when we wrote this, but now it is. And Tender Center is a not-for-profit association, and we're currently running on funds from our own small pockets and the energies of those who support us in making the space and community activities possible. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our lesbian, trans, feminist, queer, POC friends, and wider LTGBQ, yeah, LTGB. I get it really mixed up with the different languages, and we added a whole bunch on the end. Communities and allies for creating a space for music, art, poetry, politics, hanging out, and care of all queer kinds. Tender Center Rotterdam is the place to go for all who seek to question heteronormativity and want to bask in queerness. TC is feminist, TC is a trans space, TC welcomes refugees, asylum seekers, and others affected by immigration systems. TC likes dancing in the daytime. It's a space to gather and generate energies that overspill its boundaries. TC has a problem with categories, even self-defined ones. TC is a space-time that is being practiced by the community of people who inhabit it. It's a practical and a dreaming infrastructure, a house for light and deep hanging out, and thinking thoughts towards as yet unthinkable possibilities. A house for learning the tools you're going to need in the future we're building. A collective practice of shared care and responsibility that is sensitive to its inevitable painful failures and creates spontaneous joy. TC is open to all when that's possible, but sometimes it needs to set limits. TC acknowledges the messiness and complexity of life and the uneven distribution of absolutely everything, and wants to talk and listen and act about this. TC is a membership organisation. And just to flag, I think a reason for reading this whole text is that it's like one thing that every member of the collective has agreed on, and I think that's something that feels important, like when we get asked to kind of speak on behalf of what we do when we're many and we're different amongst us, and then we also host and facilitate many other groups to do their things. So we're just going to quickly run through a couple of events, and I can't see how much time we have now, but perfect. So this is a homemade poster that we always have like posters in the window of what's going on, because it's also about sometimes it's also about kind of, we're thinking quite a lot about access in terms of how we present ourselves. So although we exist in digital space, we also exist in very, very basic, simple, direct ways as well, like speaking to people. And this is like what our activities that we had in September. So it just gives you an idea of the range of stuff we're doing. There's like reading groups, support groups. There's like us hosting other people's events, like Girls Go Boom, do like a ongoing kind of performance, open mic thing. There's some of our own events, which is like an orchestra that is yet to happen, but it's like an orchestra for non-musicians who have no musical training and want to play music together. There was a climate march, banner making, gathering, and that's something the space has been used for, which I think is something we're thinking about a lot as a collective, is kind of building alliances of solidarity across concerns and issues, and so because we have a physical space, then it can be used as a space for gathering and also a sort of space for processing. It's kind of been used the other way around for sort of after marches, so kind of coming down and being together. And there was a fashion and styling event, because that's also important too. So this is a kind of some pictures of what am I going to talk about? So 3 events. This one is to give you an idea of the spectrum. This one is Slutty Pumpkin, which is an annual event we do, which is around sort of Halloween, Samhain, and it's a mixture of just like hanging out, making Halloween stuff, making lanterns, and then Gio is really brilliant at hosting kind of like queer open mic performance. And then people come and do their performances, and then there's a party. And here's some people performing. And we've chosen these pictures because it's all people who have given permission to use the pictures. This is our, this is people having drinks. This is some of our merchandise, which is made by Paula, who is, we have various graphic designers in the collective, including Yin Yin, and Paula is also an amazing graphic designer and made our logo with a font by a feminist font designer. And this is Beyond the Binary, which is a monthly meet-up support group that we have, which is for non-binary and gender non-conforming and trans people in Rotterdam. And so it alternates between one month being a facilitated support group, which is led by a very active member of the sort of gender non-conforming queer community in Rotterdam, who's also a trained counsellor. So it's a sort of it's a space for conversation and it's a closed group for anyone who wants to attend, and then that alternates every other month with a more social kind of hangout thing. So it's just a space where people can be and express their gender identity in ways that feels good for them, but without there being an audience. And the last one was an event that we did before Christmas. This is like a still from an Andre Reader film, and who was a member of Strange Fruit, which was a collective in Amsterdam in the 80s and 90s that did, that was a collective of like queer people of colour that sort of self-organised like a lot of different sort of support and activist activities. And we did an event with a couple of artists from other places who came to Rotterdam, and then we had Andre there, and we had Ron van Zeeland, who was a member of the sort of AIDS activism community, and it was around World AIDS Day, and we were looking at questions of collectivizing queer care and what queer people now in the present can learn from the sort of forms of self-organized care that came out of the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s, and sort of thinking about that in relation to neoliberalized healthcare systems. And I think we have to stop now.
Yeah, we have to stop. Yeah. These are some events that you can look up if you're interested in seeing us somewhere in these coming weeks.
Oh no, and unions.
Okay,
Unions starting
great.
a choir.
Naomi Pieter was supposed to talk now. Here's your mic. But she unfortunately had to cancel her presence, but she was gracious enough to send her presentation to us, and I think we thought it was important that we would share her thoughts with you. In the series of new platforms, Naomi Pieter is also a very important new voice in that realm. She's a performance artist, a queer and anti-racist activist who centers around making space for the intersections of those communities. Founder of Daughters of Ivory and co-founder of Black, Queer and Trans Resistance NL. She's also the initiator of Pride of Color Amsterdam, the first committee within Amsterdam Pride that focuses on inclusion and empowerment of bicultural LGBT plus people. And she also organizes Bondi Pride, a party in the Melkweg, which offers a safe party space, basically, for that community. And she's also part of the Black Archives community, where she's been setting up a Black Queer archive. So let's hear her words. Well, let's give her a hand anyway. She'll, yeah.
Hi, everyone. I will do my best to represent Naomi Pieter. Sadly, she's not here, but glad to present her work anyway. So she sent us a text, and I'm going to read her text. Hi, everybody. I'm honored to stand before you. My name is Naomi Pieter. I'm the co-founder of Black, Queer and Trans Resistance. I'm the founder of Bondi Pride. I'm a member of Kick Out Zwarte Piet. I'm a choreographer and a performance artist. I'm the youngest at home, and I love pie and cupcakes. A lot of people would call me an activist, but I'm just trying to do my part wherever I can. If you have seen injustice, how can you close your eyes to it? I know some can, but I refuse. I'm here to talk to you about my art and my activism practice. Better said, how to put intersectionality into practice. Who doesn't know what intersectionality is? Raise your hand. It's very simple. I'm Black, I'm queer, and a woman. Those things influence each other and cannot be separated, although society tries to do that, trying to make me only Black or queer or woman, but I'm all at the same time. Theory is nothing without practice, and therefore I will share 4 examples. In 2018, I co-founded the Black Queer and Trans Resistance Netherlands with Wigerts and Julian Iseana and Colin Edson. Later, Coco Gervais, Jean Neuville, and Ahmed joined us. Unfortunately, it was violence that brought us together in 2018. To make a long story short, there was a brutal hate crime committed against a Black Surinamese gay guy. He was brutally beaten and robbed near a metro station in Amsterdam. We were furious about how the media covered it. For example, there was hardly any coverage, and if it was, they talked about a brutal robbery instead of a hate crime. We were furious about how the police responded to it. They called it a brutal robbery instead of a hate crime. The attackers used homophobic slurs while following and beating and robbing the guy. How was this not a hate crime? We were furious about all of this, especially because a few months before, a white gay couple got attacked and the whole country was angry. Remember the Hand in Hand actie? Where was this outrage for this Black Surinamese guy? So we decided to organize a demonstration, and we called the demonstration The Right to Be Yourself. This is an important title to look at. We could have called the demo Demonstration Against Homophobia or something. But then the energy of the demonstration would have been totally different. It was important for me to organize in a way that would say the same, but that would produce joy in a certain way. I have a clip of the demo that I would like to show you. I'm afraid there is no clip. Yeah. And this was also the first time that I felt safe during a demonstration. My experience of participating in demonstrations in the Netherlands have been highly traumatic and violent. Who have seen or participated in anti-Black P demonstrations? So I think I don't have to explain how violent they are and they're getting. I always say, if you want to learn about social justice issues in the Netherlands, look at who has the right to demonstrate and who doesn't, who gets protected and who gets arrested. Organizing demonstrations is one of the things that we do. We organize panels, we advise on Black queer issues. We started archiving Black queer history and made an exposition called Nostay, and we celebrate Black queer magic by existing, especially in a society that doesn't include our reality, being Black and queer. Another example of putting intersectionality to practice. Bondi Pride is more than just a party. It's a new way of imagining reality where we can celebrate ourselves. As maybe some of you know, within dancehall you have a lot of homophobic songs, like Chichi Man by Talk, a song that calls for people to burn gay people, or Buju Banton with Boom Boom Bai telling people to shoot gay people in the head. Imagine standing on a dance floor and hearing songs that think that you should be burned alive or be shot in your head, and everybody's dancing and singing along. Being Black and queer means always being in limbo. My last example of putting intersectionality into practice is an artwork that I made. It's called Timeless Demonstration. Timeless Demonstration is an interactive performance that questions the position of the audience in relation to society and the performers. Some of the performers were activists with no performance background, and some were students of SNDO, that is School for New Dance Development at the Academy for Theatre and Dance in Amsterdam, where I will be graduating this year. It was important to me to work with people, real people, that could easily create a protest sign for every struggle that they had. Next to that, most of the issues that we are protesting, people have protesting against them for years, like racism, women issues, LGBTQI+ issues. The blank paper presents this ongoing timeless struggle. Audience members were invited to think and write down what they stand for, what is their position in society in relation to the performers. In another section of the performance, audience members are invited to show to what they stand for. It was quite emotional, but beautiful way of talking and thinking about our different positions in society. My last example is my speech during the Women's March in 2019. I invited different people that identified with the gender women. I wanted to create an image for that young black girl that didn't have any image of black or women of color protesting women's issues in the Netherlands. An image that is rooted in black women's resistance tradition. Those images are not included in our Dutch history books. This was for her. Thank you. And she asked, follow me on and follow our work on Facebook and Instagram. Our next Pondy Pride party is on the 7th of March.
All right, thank you. So thank you, Naomi, and be well. Good to hear all of these great examples. And can we get some more lights in the room so that we... well, that's very intimate, huh? Maybe people...